Now I want to talk briefly about hardware, because as computer scientists we have to have an understanding of some of the fundamentals of hardware. So let's talk first about the ones that we know a lot about, okay? So for example, we know a lot about, I bet a lot of people can name input devices. What are the input devices you would name? Keyboard. Okay, so I'm going to repeat what people are saying because there's no external mics, so I want to get it recorded for the recording. So keyboards. Somebody else said what? Mouse. What else would be an input device? Okay, microphones, correct. Hold the thought of USB devices. Those are not really considered input devices. What do you think they might be considered? Storage devices, okay? So the typical input devices are keyboard, mouse, microphone. There's one other that might be considered touch. Did you say touch screen? Touch screen would be another. Those are the predominant. Camera as well, so for video, yeah. So yeah. Headphones, output. Hold that thought, okay? So input is, those are, but of course we're predominantly used keyboard and mouse, and then we're used to, you know, we know there's other, and speakers and that type of thing. Okay, so let's talk, so we have a lot of knowledge about that. Let's talk about output devices. Let's talk about output devices. What are output devices? The monitor, the display, what else? Speakers and printer are the predominant output devices that we're familiar with. These are predominant. Okay, so these are hardware devices that are predominantly used for input into the computer and output from the computer. Okay, so now let's talk for a second about the rest of this picture. I'm going to bring the screen up. There are two types of storage. You think at the beginning of the semester we would have nice fresh markers. Okay. There are two types of storage. One is called primary storage, and the other is called secondary storage. And I always think there's a lot of confusion about this, which is why I like to give this discussion in the beginning. Can we see this? Let me put a light on here. Better? Better? Worse? I feel like an eye doctor. That's my last light. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about secondary storage, because I think most people are familiar with that first. What are some of the secondary storage devices? USB? External hard drive. So, okay, so let's put, I'm going to put, remind me to bring my pen next time. External hard drive. USB. What else? Okay. As that, okay. If that's, well, if it's our C drive, it actually is considered secondary storage. So anything that's our secondary storage, even if it's internal to the device, is still considered secondary storage. So okay, so let's flip the discussion for a second. What's primary storage then? Let's define primary storage. That's actually a shorter discussion. What's primary storage? Primary storage is RAM. Okay, so what the heck is RAM? Oh yeah, random access memory. And what does that mean? What's that? Okay. It's a workspace for your computer to work in. I like these answers.
It takes the data that you recently accessed and stores it in there for quick use.
Okay, it's quick. I like all that. So what is in RAM? Let's say this is RAM. What does RAM contain at any given time? What's in RAM at any given time? Output. What do you mean by output? Okay, so the display, essentially, yeah. Drivers are stored on some storage device. Okay, so let's think about what happens. Let's start with the computer that's off. How about that? Okay? The computer is off, and we boot up the computer. All right? We turn it on, we boot it up. Okay? So hold on. So we boot it up, and what happens? The computer has some type of chip that runs a big... There's no elves inside the computer. There's a chip that has a boot up program that is contained that does some initial checking. It checks your hardware, checks to see, does a diagnostic check, la, la, la. But the other thing that the boot up program does is load some information into RAM. So what gets loaded into RAM upon boot up? Cool. Go ahead. The operating system. Does everybody agree that one of the things that you need in RAM at any given time is the operating system? Okay? So in my computer here, what is the operating system? Windows. Okay? So what is Windows? An operating system. Yeah. I said that. What is Windows? Yes. User interface, allows you to process, does a lot of these things. But at the fundamental part, what is Windows? Is it a program? Is Windows a program? Yes. So where does Windows, or the operating system, come from? Where is it sitting? It's sitting on the secondary storage drive. So on the C drive, and it's not called this anymore, there has to exist the program. I don't know what it's called. It's some new version of, and it's different each time. There has to be the Windows program. So upon boot up, pieces of the Windows program, or whatever operating system you're using, are then loaded into, let's put Windows here since that's what we're talking about. Parts of the Windows program are loaded into RAM. But they have to exist on the secondary storage drive, or it can't be loaded. Okay? So what happens when I then select a program, such as Microsoft Word? So I want to bring up Word. Okay, so this file also must exist where? On the secondary storage. So, and I don't know what this is called. There's a different version all the time. It's Office, Word, .exe. But their bottom line is there's some executable for both the operating system and whatever program you use. And as you invoke that program, pieces get loaded into RAM. So parts of Word get loaded into RAM. Everybody agree? Okay? So what happens now as I start to type a document? Okay. But where is it? Where's the document? Okay, so I'm typing my document. Okay? And initially, it's stored in RAM. What happens if, the power goes out? Okay, so it's all lost, but hold on. So what about Windows? Is Windows lost? No, because Windows is still on the hard drive, so that can be reloaded. What about Word? Is that lost? No, that's still on the hard drive. That can be loaded. What about the document I was working on? It's gone unless I save that in some format, in some fashion to an external storage. So in summary, what is stored in RAM? Can we say that it is the currently active what? Programs and data. And that's why RAM has to be quick, because that's what we're working on at the time. Okay? So one other analogy, and then I'll move on. So let's say that I ask you, like, you know, your conscious mind right now is analogous to RAM. And right now you're probably wishing you hadn't signed up for a 9:30 class, you're wishing you'd gotten breakfast, you know, whatever. These are all in your mind right now. If I ask you what the capital of Maryland is, you would have to go to the hard drive, where hopefully you haven't destroyed too many brain cells over orientation week, and pull up the information, which the answer is Annapolis, and bring that into your primary storage. Okay? So primary storage is, or RAM, is what the computer is currently working on. Does that make sense? Okay? Everything else gets stored in secondary storage in a variety of forms. And that includes the hard drive, that includes external drives, that includes USBs and CD-ROM, et cetera, et cetera. Quite an array of options there. Okay? So the remaining piece is the CPU, which consists of two parts, which is sort of the brain of the computer. It consists of the control unit, which basically executes the instructions that have been in RAM for the program, and the arithmetic logic unit, and those two things work on the instructions of the programs as they're loaded into, as they exist in RAM. Okay? So here's RAM, and here is the part that is executing the instructions that are in RAM.